In the 25th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th of the month, in the 14th year after the fall of the city, on that very day the hand of the Lord was on me, and he took me there. In visions of God, he took me to the land of Israel and set me on a very high mountain, on whose south side were some buildings that looked like a city. He took me there, and I saw a man whose appearance was like bronze. He was standing in the gateway with a linen cord and a measuring rod in his hand. The man said to me,
"Son of man, look carefully and listen closely, and pay attention to everything I'm going to show you, for that is why you have been brought here. Tell the house of Israel everything you see."
I saw a wall completely surrounding the temple area. The length of the measuring rod in the man's hand was 6 long cubits, each of which was a cubit and a handbreadth. He measured the wall. It was 1 measuring rod thick and 1 rod high. Then he went to the east gate. He climbed its steps and measured the threshold of the gate. It was 1 rod deep. The alcoves for the guards were 1 rod long and 1 rod wide, and the projecting walls between the alcoves were 5 cubits thick. And the threshold of the gate next to the portico facing the temple was 1 rod deep. Then he measured the portico of the gateway. It was 8 cubits deep, and its jambs were 2 cubits thick. The portico of the gateway faced the temple. Inside the east gate were 3 alcoves on each side. The 3 had the same measurements, and the faces of the projecting walls on each side had the same measurements. Then he measured the width of the entrance of the gateway. It was 10 cubits, and its length was 13 cubits. In front of each alcove was a wall 1 cubit high, and the alcoves were 6 cubits square. Then he measured the gateway from the top of the rear wall of 1 alcove to the top of the opposite one. The distance was 25 cubits from 1 parapet opening to the opposite one. He measured along the faces of the projecting walls all around the inside of the gateway, 60 cubits. The measurement was up to the portico facing the courtyard. The distance from the entrance of the gateway to the far end of its portico was 50 cubits. The alcoves and projecting walls inside the gateway were surmounted by narrow parapet openings all around, as was the portico. The openings all around faced inward. The faces of the projecting walls were decorated with palm trees. Then he brought me into the outer court. There I saw some rooms and a pavement that had been constructed all around the court. There were 30 rooms along the pavement. It abutted the sides of the gateways and was as wide as they were long. This was the lower pavement. Then he measured the distance from the inside of the lower gateway to the outside of the inner court. It was 100 cubits on the east side as well as on the north. Then he measured the length and width of the north gate leading into the outer court. Its alcoves, 3 on each side, its projecting walls, and its portico had the same measurements as those of the first gateway. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. Its openings, its portico, and its palm tree decorations had the same measurements as those of the gate facing east. 7 steps led up to it, with its portico opposite them. There was a gate to the inner court facing the north gate, just as there was on the east. He measured from one gate to the opposite one. It was 100 cubits. Then he led me to the south side, and I saw the south gate. He measured its jambs and its portico, and they had the same measurements as the others. The gateway and its portico had narrow openings all around, like the openings of the others. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. 7 steps led up to it, with its portico opposite them. It had palm tree decorations on the faces of the projecting walls on each side. The inner court also had a gate facing south, and he measured from this gate to the outer gate on the south side. It was 100 cubits. Then he brought me into the inner court through the south gate, and he measured the south gate. It had the same measurements as the others. Its alcoves, its projecting walls, and its portico had the same measurements as the others. The gateway and its portico had openings all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. The porticos of the gateways around the inner court were 25 cubits wide and 5 cubits deep. Its portico faced the outer court. Palm trees decorated its jambs, and 8 steps led up to it. Then he brought me to the inner court on the east side, and he measured the gateway. It had the same measurements as the others. Its alcoves, its projecting walls, and its portico had the same measurements as the others. The gateway and its portico had openings all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. Its portico faced the outer court. Palm trees decorated the jambs on either side, and 8 steps led up to it. Then he brought me to the north gate and measured it. It had the same measurements as the others, as did its alcoves, its projecting walls, and its portico, and it had openings all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. Its portico faced the outer court. Palm trees decorated the jambs on either side, and 8 steps led up to it. A room with a doorway was by the portico in each of the inner gateways where the burnt offerings were washed. In the portico of the gateway were 2 tables on each side, on which the burnt offerings, sin offerings, and guilt offerings were slaughtered. By the outside wall of the portico of the gateway, near the steps at the entrance of the north gateway were 2 tables, and on the other side of the steps were 2 tables. So there were 4 tables on one side of the gateway and 4 on the other, 8 tables in all, on which the sacrifices were slaughtered. There were also 4 tables of dressed stone for the burnt offerings, each a cubit and a half long, a cubit and a half wide, and a cubit high. On them were placed the utensils for slaughtering the burnt offerings and the other sacrifices. And double-pronged hooks, each a handbreadth long, were attached to the wall all around. The tables were for the flesh of the offerings. Outside the inner gate within the inner court were 2 rooms, one at the side of the north gate and facing south, and another at the side of the south gate and facing north. He said to me,
The room facing south is for the priests who guard the temple, and the room facing north is for the priests who guard the altar. These are the sons of Zadok, who are the only Levites who may draw near to the Lord to minister before him.
Then he measured the court. It was square 100 cubits long and 100 cubits wide, and the altar was in front of the temple. He brought me to the portico of the temple and measured the jambs of the portico. They were 5 cubits wide on either side. The width of the entrance was 14 cubits, and its projecting walls were 3 cubits wide on either side. The portico was 20 cubits wide, and 12 cubits from front to back. It was reached by a flight of stairs, and there were pillars on each side of the jambs.
The message that's been on my mind, and I believe the ancestors gave me this message to give the people. And I want to ask you some questions. As you know me, I'm going to ask you some questions. The topic of today's live stream is everybody, all the prophets in the Bible were Obeah men. Yes, I said it. Even Jesus was an Obeah man. Oh Lord, the Christians are going to roast me on this one. But I'm going to prove to you that everybody in the Bible, all the prophets, were Obeah men and Obeah women. The Nigerians, they call them Dibia. The Yoruba call them Obeah men. The South Africans in the Southern Africa call them Sangomas. They call them, in Senegal and Mali, Maribou or Marabous. The people of Kemet, they call them the priests of Amun. Christianity calls them prophets. Islam calls them prophets, and I call them all Obeah man. They call them, the Yoruba also call them Changó. In the Caribbean, you call them Obeah man. You call them Changó Baptists. You call them seers. You call them prophets, and they all Obeah men. But the reason why I'm talking about this today is because the Bible tells you when black people do it, it's witchcraft. But when it's done in the Bible, it's called miracles. So we're going to deal with the hypocrisy today. Now, I am not telling anyone, go to Obeah, or Juju, or Roots. A Roots man is what they call them in America. Down south, they say roots. Sometimes they call it Juju. The Hindus call it, shit, I forgot what the Hindu call it. Jadu. Jadu. I'm not telling anyone to go do Juju or roots or Obeah. I'm making a point. So let's get to the Bible about the hypocrisy that when the same thing is done, when black people do it, it's bad. But when it's in the Bible and it's in the Quran, it's good. And I say, all of them are Obeah man. Let's start. Black people have been hearing the spirit speak, or they call it Voodoo, or what white people call Voodoo. And these are the different names of the same spiritual system. It's the same spiritual system. In Benin and Congo, call it Voodoo. White people corrupted the word and call it Voodoo or Vodou. Juju, Obeah, miracles, all of it is the same thing. Black people for a million years, but we're going to deal with some hypocrisy today in systems that make black people hate what they know to do. It makes them hate what they know to do and then go and adopt a book, the Bible or the Quran, and all of a sudden, the same system becomes holy. You see what I'm trying to show you? So now that we understand the words, in America they call it roots, or they call it the occult. And if you didn't know, the entire planet is held up in occultic secrecy. I am not telling you, go do rituals. I am not telling you, go perform sacrifices. I am not telling you, become an Obeah man. I'm not telling you, go do Juju. I am not telling you, fling anything behind anybody. What I am talking about is that when you do it as a black person, it's witchcraft. But the same system is in your religious books and is holy. Let me show you. Your book starts off with Sky Fairy Yahweh. He comes to planet Earth and he sees the whole planet is in darkness. Even though I think that's code for black people, but that's just me. Sky Fairy Yahweh shows up and says, I see nothing but darkness. And he says, let there be light. You say, okay. But when you read the book, 3 days later, he creates the sun. So you scratch your head and you say, wait, hold on. How the hell did he say, let there be light, and then create the sun 3 days later? That is Obeah. Am I wrong? That is Obeah. Only an Obeah man can see through darkness using spiritual light without a flashlight and without the sun. That is Obeah. Obeah opens the first book in the Bible. Can I get a witness? Let me say that again. Sky Fairy Yahweh comes to earth and says he sees nothing but blackness. He says, let there be light. But then when you read Genesis, he creates the sun 3 days later. How the hell did he have light before the sun? He used a flashlight? That is Obeah. I said, that is Obeah. That is Juju. That is roots. That is Voodoo. That is what you call witchcraft. That is what you call the occult. That is what you call illumination. How the hell can you have light to do work and then create the sun 4 days later? Your book opens with the occult. But when the Obeah man, who sits in a dark room without a flashlight and without the sun, brings light without a candle, a flashlight, the sun, he illuminates the room. You call him an Obeah man. Make up your mind. I said, black people, make up your mind. Here we go again. So Joseph was still in Genesis. Joseph, who was a prophet, his brother, wicked brother, throw him into a pit. He goes into jail. He's in the jail. And in the jail, while he's in the jail, Pharaoh has a dream. Pharaoh, no one of Pharaoh high priest could interpret the dream. So the butler of Pharaoh remembered Joseph. He said, there's a man who's in your jail who can interpret dreams. So they say, Pharaoh said, bring him. Because none of the Obeah men I have could interpret the dream. Walk less Obeah man. So they go and they get Joseph. The Pharaoh tells Joseph the dream. Joseph interprets the dream. When it's in your Bible, Joseph's interpretation of the dream is holy. But when the Obeah man, where the Dibia, where the Sangoma, where the Juju man, where the Dibia, where the roots man, interpret the same dream and it comes to pass, when it's black people who do it, it's witchcraft. But when it's Sky Fairy in your book do it, It's miracle. Make up your mind. Is it Obeah? When the Dibia and the Obeah man interpret the dream? So if it's Obeah for the Obeah man, then Joseph was an Obeah man. Is anybody listening? Oh, you will say, no. It has to do with the spirit. Don't the Obeah men contact spirit? Oh, it has to do with the spirit of Sky Fairy Yahweh being holy and every other spirit being evil. But if the Obeah man interprets the dream right, how is the spirit evil? Make up your mind. Why is it when your indigenous ways do it and do it right, it's witchcraft? But when it's in Sky Fairy book, it's holy. It's all Obeah. Make up your mind. Because in order for Joseph to interpret the dream, he had to have a connection in the cosmos. And whether you're good or you're evil, that connection to the cosmos is what brings you answers. Make up your mind. So let's get to Moses. So Moses, your greatest prophet, who was an Obeah man. You know, Moses wasn't an Obeah man. Moses was holy. Moses was an Obeah man. Moses was an Obeah man. Let me say it again. Moses was a Dibia. Moses was a Sangoma. Moses was a Juju man. Moses was an Obeah man. Moses was a roots man. I'll prove it. Moses, the Bible says Moses was an Egyptian. And he was a prince. And he was trained in the ways of Egypt. What does that mean? He was trained in their secret art. How the hell do you build a pyramid on shifting sand and the pyramids don't sink? Obeah! Obeah! I say Obeah! Let me say that again. I'm here. I am here. You tell me, here I am. You are building massive stone blocks, not on rock, on sand. Any one of you, I want you to go build anything on sand, no mortar, and come back and tell me if you can build on sand. The Egyptians were Obeah men, and so was Moses. So Sky Fairy Yahweh calls Moses. He said, listen, it's time to let my Sky Fairy people, who never spent a day in Egypt, and they didn't build nothing in Egypt, but anyway, that's for next thing. He said, listen, I'm going to give you a stick. Many of you, when Sky Fairy Moses say, but Yahweh, what power are you going to give me? What did Sky Fairy Yahweh give Moses to represent power? He gave him a stick. What do Obeah men walk with as a symbol of their power? A stick. Can I get a witness? What do Obeah men, Juju man, Xango man, roots, what do they walk with? And when you see them walking with it, you know, don't mess with this one. Sky Fairy Yahweh, who was an Obeah man, he was the first Obeah man. Sky Fairy Yahweh was the first Obeah man. Because that Sky Fairy said, let there be light without no damn sun. Okay? He gave Moses as a symbol of power, a stick. The United States government come with warcraft, naval, space weapons, tanks, truck. Sky Fairy Yahweh gave Moses the most powerful prophet in the Bible, a stick. And when you go to a real Obeah man walks with a stick. Now we get it into the Obeah part now. So Sky Fairy Yahweh, of course Moses said to Sky Fairy, how the ass you're going to send me to Pharaoh, the most powerful Obeah man on the planet, with a kiss me ass stick. Okay? He said a stick. Moses said, hey, I ain't going. He said, Moses, throw your stick on the ground. You're telling me the Bible is not filled with witchcraft? He said to Moses, Moses, throw your stick on the ground. I'm going to show you something. Moses threw his stick on the ground. The stick turned to a serpent. Where do you see sticks turn to snakes except in Obeah? Hey, can I get a witness? I said, where do you see sticks turn to snakes except with the World Health Organization, because that's their logo, and except with Obeah men? But yet they tell you one is wicked and the next one is holy. Make up your mind. It's all Obeah. I said, make up your mind. It is all Obeah. Moses jumped now. Moses was a trained priest. But when he saw the stick turn to a snake, Moses immediately knew, this is Obeah. Moses jumped back. He said, hey, I've been given power. So watch with the Obeah continue. So Moses, who never existed, go to stand before Pharaoh. And Moses go, and he said, Pharaoh, Sky Fairy Yahweh said to let my people go. The Pharaoh said, now this is what Pharaoh actually said. He said, I don't know this God. And in this land, I'm God. So how the hell you coming to tell me who's God on earth to let people go who never existed? Who is this God? Because that is how they deal in the realm of Obeah. In order for me to submit to you, I need to know who you are. I am telling you, your book is filled with Obeah. And that's why people can understand why when they go into churches, they call it spiritual warfare. They knock me off again. So Moses, he goes and stands before Pharaoh. He says, Sky Fairy Yahweh told me, let my people go. Pharaoh says to him, how could a God come to my land and tell me, let some people go, and I don't even know? Because in the occult, if they don't know the God has to prove themselves using what? Using Obeah, Juju, Voodoo, witchcraft. I'm telling you how it goes. Yet you call, when the Africans do it, you call it witchcraft. In your Bible, the same thing. You call it holy. Make up your mind. Okay? Make up your mind. So, Pharaoh said, he got his high priest. He said, challenge him. I need to see who this God is. Challenge him. So, Pharaoh's men, because Obeah men, their symbol of power is a staff. It's a stick. That is the meaning when you see Pharaoh with the staff of power. You think it's a stick, okay? But in that stick, what Hollywood calls the one made out of Hollywood. It's the same principle. That's how Hollywood could manipulate the whole planet using the staff of power. Are you following me? But when black people use the indigenous staff of power, it's called witchcraft. But when Sky Fairy Yahweh tells Moses, use the same staff of power, it's called holy. Make up your mind. So Pharaoh's men say, they throw their stick down, and their stick turned into a snake. Sky Fairy Yahweh told Moses, throw your staff down. Moses' staff turned into a bigger snake, telling them Yahweh is a bigger Obeah man than Pharaoh's Obeah men. Can I get a witness? Let me say it again. Moses' staff turned into a bigger snake and ate all Pharaoh's wise men snakes. You guys missed the point. There's a bigger Obeah man in town. Understand what I'm showing you? That is the meaning. Are you following? Moses' snake ate Pharaoh's snakes, telling him there is one with more power here than Pharaoh. And our Obeah is bigger than yours, allegedly, because none of this ever took place, because it's all mythology, but there's some lessons in there. Okay, the Sky Fairy battle wasn't over. So Moses had to unleash 7 different plagues on Pharaoh, or however many, I can't remember, on Pharaoh to let the imaginary people go. Today, we call what Moses did manipulating air, land, sea, and air, land, water, and something else, the 4 elements, air, land, water, and there's a 4th one I can't remember. We call that today harp. Harp is an Obeah man. Can I get a witness? I said harp. CERN is Obeah men. Can I get a witness? What Moses did, even though he never did it because he never existed, 6,000 years ago, the same magicians went and built it and called it harp. And it's the same harp they're using to spray East Africa with locusts. Are you following? So, Sky Fairy Yahweh had to unleash plagues. That, my friend, is Obeah. Obeah men know how to call the elements and use the elements to fight their battles. You don't believe me? Do you know what the Ethiopians used to defeat the Italians, and the Italians never conquered them? Bees. The Ethiopians used bees to defeat the mighty Mussolini with bees. And they spoke to the bees and told the bees, attack them. And the bees went out and attacked the Italians and sent them running for Mama Pasta. Obeah, Juju, witchcraft, the occult. Are you following? What did the Haitians use to defeat 14 countries that came after them? And yet today, you curse the Haitians. 14 powerful nations came upon tiny Haiti and Haiti with the 4 elements. But when it is outside of the Bible, it is witchcraft. But when the same thing is done inside the Bible, it is miraculous and holy. It is all witchcraft. All of it. Elijah, your prophet, he sits out in the middle of nowhere and he had an assistant. His assistant said to him, "Give me your mantle." Elijah said, "I can't give it to you." He said, "But if you see it fall," he said, "you have the gift." If you see it fall. But watch this. You don't believe me, it's all Obeah? Your own Bible tells you that a chariot of fire came down from heaven and caught up Elijah. Who else but Obeah men do you see turn into a ball of fire and get translated? Elijah was an Obeah man. Elijah was an Obeah man. Elijah was a Juju man. You don't believe me? In Voodoo, when they want to dismantle stuff spiritually, what do? They stomp and they sing in a certain vibration. And that vibration they use to dismantle what Christians call strongholds. The Sky Fairy people, for Sky Fairy Yahweh told them, "Go to Jericho." He said, "You're going to march round the walls." That is what they do in Voodoo. They march and they hit the ground. That is Voodoo. And he said, on the 7th time, holla! But when the Voodoo priestess does it, you're a witch. But when the Sky Fairy people do it in your Bible, it is holy. Black people, make up your mind. I said, black people, make up your mind. When the Voodoo priestess stomp and shout, it is witchcraft, you say. But when Sky Fairy Yahweh told the children of Israel, march round Jericho, and the last day, holla, it is holy. Is anybody following? I said, is anybody following? I said, watch. The Voodoo practitioner, they stomp and shout. You go to Southern Baptist Church in the United States, and they stomp and they shout. When they stomp and shout in the Baptist church, it is holy. But when the Voodoo priestesses stomp and shout, it is demonic. Black people, make up your minds. I said, black people, make up your minds. So let's get the Sky Fairy Jesus. You know, the one I can't touch. Because all hell gonna break. Jesus was an Obeah man. Let me say it again. For the trees that can't hear me in the forest. I said, for the trees that cannot hear me in the forest. Jesus was an Obeah man. Even though he never existed. But Jesus, who the hell could die and raise themselves up on the 3rd day except an Obeah man? Can I get any witnesses? Let me say it again. Sky Fairy Jesus, who never existed, was an Obeah man. Who but an Obeah man could die and raise himself up on the 3rd day? When you go to the Caribbean, back in the day, they raised the dead. You call them zombies, but they raised them anyway. But when Jesus raised himself from the dead on the 3rd day, you call them holy. Black people, make up your minds. I said, black people, make up your minds. Who but an Obeah man could walk on water? When the Obeah man walk on water, everybody scatter because the Obeah man walking on water. But when Sky Fairy Jesus walk on water, he is holy. Black people, make up your minds. I said, black people, make up your minds. You don't believe me? Jesus was an Obeah man? When Jesus was born, and he was about 2 years old, His family had to run away from the king. Can anybody tell me, where did Jesus hide until he was 12 years old? Can anybody tell me, where did Jesus hide until he was 12 years old, running away from the king? Egypt! You know, the country where Moses' snake ate Pharaoh's snake. Hello! He hid in Egypt. Egypt, where they built pyramids on sand, where your Bible tells you, don't build your house on sand, but the Egyptians proved that you could build something everlasting on sand, and then your Bible comes and tells you, don't build your house on sand, and I'm here to tell you, if the Egyptians, hey, can build, their house, on sand, so can you. Let me say it again. Your Bible tells you, don't build your house on sand, and I'm here to tell you, if the Egyptians, can build, a house high on sand, so can you. What kind of Obeah? Where you can build a house on goddamn sand, and that shit is standing for 10,000 years. That is Obeah. I said, that is Obeah. Your sky fairy Jesus. You don't believe me he was an Obeah man? When he ran away from Herod, the only place that could protect him from Herod was hiding out in Egypt. You know why? Because the Rukung Kotungkung, that was in Egypt. The Rukung Kotungkung. Can I get a witness? The Rukung Kotungkung that the Egyptians had in Egypt. Herod did not follow him in Egypt. They would have turned Herod into an upside down Oreo cookie. Okay? Let me say it again. Jesus did not go and get protections from the Romans. The Romans didn't have the African Rukung Kotungkung. Are you following me? Let me say this again. Okay? I am speaking to black people because sometimes we got to speak, when we talk to black people, we got to make up words. Rukung Kotungkung. You understand? I'm teaching you a lesson. How to handle police brutality. Okay? Herod was after Jesus. Jesus couldn't go get protection from Rome. Rome today got the Rukung Kotungkung. But at the time of Jesus, Rome didn't have the Rukung Kotungkung that they had like the Africans. So the only place for Jesus to hide, the angel came and said, listen, hey, send the child into Egypt. Because them Africans have the gravy to protect their star seed from wicked ass Herod. So they sent Skyfairy Jesus into Egypt. What do you think Jesus was studying in Egypt? You know Egypt, the ones who built, who put stone, who defied gravity. You know the Egyptians, the ones who defied gravity and said, I am going to build on sand. Imagine the power of the Rukung Kotungkung. Those Egyptians knew how to mix a cake, if you know what I mean. And they were the only ones with the spiritual power to protect Skyfairy Jesus. You don't believe me Jesus was an Obeah man? Okay. When Jesus came out from Egypt, 12 years later, his mother lost him. She said, wait, where's this boy? I will whoop this little boy's ass. God gave me a son. Yahweh, how the hell are you giving me a son? And your son disappearing. Okay? I lost the star child. So she goes into the temple. And Jesus, you don't believe me Jesus was an Obeah man? Your own Bible tells you, watch this, that Jesus was teaching the doctors in the temple. Do you understand what the original word of doctors mean? It meant the medicine man and the lawgiver. That's who the priests were. When people were sick, they had the sacred skills to heal them. And they also delivered the law. Your own Bible told you that when Jesus was standing and he was giving the doctors in the temple hell, they said, who the hell is this boy? Jesus, who never existed, was an Obeah man. You don't believe me? They don't believe me Jesus was an Obeah man? Okay. I already explained to you that it's only Obeah men who could raise the dead. If you go into the Caribbean, there are people who, especially in Haiti and Jamaica, they raise the dead all the time. All the time. And they've been doing it. Ask any Haitian who's honest. They'll tell you, they raise the dead. You have a whole bunch of people who died and they raised them without modern medicine walking up and down Haiti and Jamaica. And they used to do it in Trinidad too. Okay? But watch this. You don't believe me Jesus is an Obeah man? Watch it. After he raised the dead, they said he started appearing to his followers. He walked through a wall and was standing in the midst of his followers, and they thought it was a ghost. Only Obeah men does walk through walls, baby. Are you following? Only Obeah men can walk through a wall, stand in front of you, and you won't recognize they're there until they speak. Jesus was an Obeah man. But when the Africans walk through a wall, you call it witchcraft. But when Jesus walks through a wall, you call it holy. Black people, make up your minds. Black people, make up your minds. You don't believe me Jesus was an Obeah man? Okay. When Jesus came out of the grave, Mary, his girlfriend, that the church won't like to admit that was his girlfriend, Mary was at the grave crying over Jesus. Ah! You know women. Ah! Ah! They killed him. Ah! You know women. Your Bible said Jesus was standing right there before her, and she thought he was the gardener. Only an Obeah man will stand in front of you and make you think it's a goddamn gardener. Can I get a witness? I said, can I get a witness? It's when he spoke to her, she said, oh shit, Jesus! Only an Obeah man will stand in front of you, and you don't even know he's there. And if you see him, you won't recognize him. Jesus was an Obeah man. But the point I'm trying to show you is this. When the Africans raise their own dead, you run them out of the village, and you call them Obeah men. But when the same person, when someone in your Bible does it, you call it holy. Make up your mind. When Jesus opened the eyes of the blind, you call him holy. But when you're African Juju man, your Xango man, your Voodoo priest, your Changó man, your Changó woman, your, we call them in Senegal and Mali, your Marabout, when they do it, you call them witches. Make up your mind. Make up your mind. When Jesus heals the sick, you call him holy. But when your Obeah men heal the sick, you run him out of town. Make up your mind. Make up your mind. When the Obeah man, they call them the rainmakers. When you have a drought in Africa, you used to have rainmakers. And these people would communicate with the upper atmosphere, talking to it, saying, listen, we got a drought down here. You need to send rain. And the rainmakers would say, come, drummers, play this beat. And it would send up the frequency talking to the ionosphere, and the ionosphere would send back down the frequency, rain is coming. You call it Obeah. But when Yahweh says, when you sin against me, I won't send you rain. But when you turn back to me, I'm going to send you rain. You call it holy. When Elijah came and said, for this number of years, there will be no rain. You say, Elijah is holy. But when the Obeah man says, you two kiss me ass wicked, no rain for you, you run him out of town and you call him a witch. When the Obeah man comes and he starts talking to the atmosphere, all of a sudden a cloud shows up, everybody scatter. He's an Obeah man! But when Elijah said, goes to the king and said, gird up your loins, rain is coming. You say it is holy. And then the rain comes and washes everything away. In your Bible, you call it holy. But when the Obeah man says to you, rain is coming, when the cloud shows up, all of you scatter. He's an Obeah man. Here's my question. Why is it when the African does it, it is witchcraft? But when it is done, the same thing is done in the Bible. The same thing is done in the Bible. It is holy. When the African does it, it is witchcraft. But when the same thing is done in the Quran, it is holy. Black people, make up your mind. Make up your mind. When someone does evil, because they didn't have physical courts then, when someone did evil, you went to the Obeah man. Because the Obeah man could see who's the... They just bumped me off.
Le vaudou a désormais les genoux à terre à la place de celui étrangleur pour faire appel aux forces de la nature afin que l'âme de George Floyd soit vengée. Depuis la forêt sacrée du roi Béanzin au Dahomey, les hauts dignitaires du culte vaudou et les têtes couronnées ont fait appel à des rituels à toutes les autres sociétés secrètes d'Afrique. La fourche à 3 flèches, les manchettes Boubassa en main, tous des armes dans l'Afrique qui permettent à nos défunts de mener les batailles qui sont les leurs dans l'au-delà. Des paroles incantatoires sont prononcées, suivies de la danse de la vengeance par les adeptes de la forêt sacrée du roi Béanzin, afin d'évoquer les véritables forces de la justice divine, dont la divinité Gou Badagli, dieu de la justice et de la guerre. Des milliers de Noirs ont connu les mêmes oppressions. Ceux-là qu'on a servi, que nos ancêtres ont aidés dans la construction de leur nation, s'érigent en